back for another casual conversation with the classic guys, and we got another very special guest, another local, another Vancouver. I don't know, we don't have like a name for Vancouver people, but another the WrestleCore's very own promoter, Kobra Kai, professional wrestler as well. What's going on? How are you?
Hello, just living my best life, brother.
Getting ready for Christmas, a very Cobra Kai Christmas. That's like a
that's right. Can't really mess me up. Yeah, it's a Cobra Kai Christmas over here.
That sounds like a movie or something. A Cobra Kai Christmas.
Yeah, you can catch it on the Slice Network.
Yeah, basically. So what is going on? I'm glad to have you on the show. We've talked a ton on the air, off the air, and finally have you on here. I've been trying to do my duty and make sure I showcase the professional wrestling that's happening here in Vancouver as of late. Obviously went through a little rough patch during the pandemic, but we're back. Yes. And, wrestling is booming in Vancouver right now. There's a lot going on. But before we get there, how about a little background on yourself? Who is Kobra Kai? A little history on your wrestling career.
Well, this little guy here? Yeah. So I've been wrestling, I think like over 20 years now. And I fell into it sort of the same way anyone falls in anything. You love a thing when you're a kid and you meet somebody who does it. I could have been a comedian or a guitar player or an accountant if I'd met one of them. Yeah. But my older brother, who was also a pro wrestler named Sinn, who used to wrestle Kazarni, his best friend.
Wait, that's your older brother?
That's my legitimate older brother.
Oh, wow. When I was looking you up way back when. And I remember, I don't know why this specific memory is in my brain. Mm-hmm. But I was reading like a list of your matches, and it was like you and Marty Jannetty versus someone in Sinn. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. He wrestled Kazarni. Of course, you also tagged with Marty Jannetty, but I'm like, oh, he wrestled Kazarni. I didn't realize that's your brother. That's insane.
That's what. Well, actually, me and Sinn have known each other, about 40 years or something like that. But Marty and I used to be on the road together. Pat Tanaka took me under his wing, when we had the chance to wrestle together, we just thought it was hilarious. But I apologize, my kid's little baby monitor going on.
That's okay.
But I don't know how to turn the volume off because my wife's going to come take this away from me so she can turn the volume off.
Sweet, there we go. But that's crazy. Look at that bombshell dropping right at the beginning. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, it gets better.
Okay.
Because growing up, his two best friends turned into Christian and Edge. Adam Copeland, Jay Riso. So I was like the annoying little younger brother who would like tag along, and they'd be like, "Get out of here, kid! You want to see a dead body or what?" And so obviously they went on to be exactly who they are. And a few years later, I wanted to get trained. I wanted to learn how to wrestle, and I got like fight clubbed everywhere. The first place I went to obviously was Ron Hutchison, who did wind up having a huge hand in helping me out and training me down the road. But I got, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too young, you're too old. Get out of here. And I went to about like 8 or 9, just under 10 different schools, all in Southern Ontario, and they all said the same thing to me. Yeah. Until I met the guy who did show me my first few bumps. How
old were you when you started?
Like early 20s, like 21, 22.
And they said you're too old?
Well, that's the thing. I got like every excuse in the book, but it was just an excuse. Yeah. And I didn't realize it at the time, but at the time it was like an etiquette thing. My older brother had come first, and I didn't have his blessing. I didn't even ask for it. Like you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
If I had known that,
did he not want you to wrestle?
I think like an older brother always is like, get out of here. Go do your own thing to the younger brother. And I was the annoying younger brother, but very quickly on. Into the whole thing. Like I said, probably within the first year of me actually wrestling live, we became super tight, and he's been so supportive and had a huge hand, not only in like how I think about wrestling and things I do in the ring, but just in life in general. He's my older brother. He's awesome.
No, so, that's crazy. Like I don't know the situation when we get into it, but I do remember being a kid and seeing those Kazarni promos. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
I think what you wanted to do is cool, but one of the resounding kind of issues that a WWE has is they have a hard time thinking of new stuff on their own. You know what I mean? And
they want to create the idea and not have someone come in there with an idea themselves. Like, especially in that old regime of like, they want to be the creator of the idea, or you have to make them believe that they came up with the idea for them to use it, rather than you going in there with an idea. And like, I mean, one of the greatest, most recent examples is the whole, like, we're not going to get deep into it, but I would consider maybe the Bray Wyatt saga. You get someone who's very creative, who was very, obviously, what's the word I'm looking for?
Inside the box. He's not.
But he was very like involved in his creative. Like he had opinions and he was passionate about it, which a lot of people were surprised when he got released, and you would have to assume that played a big role in it. that he was very passionate about his creative decisions and in touch with it, and this should be like this, and probably getting in arguments with them about what they're doing. And I think sometimes that must have been hard for the old regime. I've read enough wrestling autobiographies to hear about it. I've listened to enough podcasts, and that seemed to be a thing. So I could totally see him probably going into this great idea, but it wasn't their idea. So they're like,
you know, and the funny thing about that now, and this will kind of tie into like WrestleCore and the sort of philosophy there later, but every money guy, every main event wrestler, guy, girl, whatever, I just say guy like in the universal sense of a person, they were themselves. Yeah. You know, Stunning Steve Austin wasn't a main event guy when he became Stone Cold Steve, because that's more him. You know what I mean? And you know, Rocky Maivia or whatever. You know, until he became The Rock, he wasn't that big league guy. You know, like everyone became themselves. Whenever they had a WWE writer thrust something upon them, name one gimmick, name one thing those writers ever did, name one gimmick that went to the top. No, it was always the wrestler coming out of their shell and being
like an exaggerated version of themselves. And I always think if you even go further back and you look at like the OG wrestling, I'm like, and I talk about this quite frequently on the TWC show and stuff. I'm like, it's so like, I love the independents today and I love going to the shows, but I'm like, man, some of the stuff that I find is missing is that a lot of people are great performers in the ring, but not a lot of them talk to find themselves. And I'm like, if you look back in the old days, in the territory days before the WWF boom, a lot of the guys that came in, whether it was Jake the Snake or the Macho Man Randy Savage or Dusty Rhodes, they already discovered themselves on the territories. Yes. Like Macho Man was already doing the Macho Man and his dad's promotion in Memphis before he came to the WWF. They just like made it bigger and put it on a more global scale. Like Hogan was already doing Hulkamania in the AWA, but not many people know that, but he brought that over to, you know what I mean? So it's like they were harnessing those skills prior to making it to the big time. And I think as time went on and as the creative teams got bigger and as we brought in writers and they, you know, they needed to actually be doing work, so they had to have some sort of power, and like they just got a whole different beast. But now we're in a position today, I feel like, where everybody's learning, everyone's more athletic, they're learning how to wrestle, they know how to do all the cool spots and everything, but not a lot of them, if they got signed today to the WWE, would probably be super comfortable cutting a promo.
Oh, 100%. You know, people think, oh, I'm going to learn how to wrestle first, then I'm going to learn how to talk, then I'm going to learn how to look good.
Yeah.
What you really got to do is I got to do it the other way around. Look good, and then learn how to talk, then learn how to wrestle. Like I can teach a filing cabinet how to wrestle a match. Yeah. You know, that's easy enough. But that personality and all those other things that come first, you're 100% right. And using that analogy, right, nowadays everyone has to be a one-hit wonder, you know, right away out of the gate. That first match got.
Well, if you can go viral on Twitter or something, then you know you might get noticed. But what else do you bring to the table? Some of the greatest wrestlers didn't do a whole ton.
So like the opportunity in generations before mine was to be able to go out on the local circuit, hone your craft. By the time you got to local TV, let alone like a big, you know, stage, you had honed your craft. You were 10,000 hours in. You were awesome. You were ready to go. That's why Macho Man did Macho Man and Jake did Jake. But nowadays, we don't have that same environment where you can hone your skills and train and work that much and stuff to become that guy.
Yeah.
And back in the day, though, they couldn't go viral on, you know, Twitter or what's left of Twitter now.
Yeah.
You know, and now that's our opportunity now. So it's a comparable advantage, and you got to know how to play that, right?
Yeah.
But I will tell you another thing. I'm going to be really mean on this.
No, be whoever you want to be.
I'll say this is like there's not a single wrestler, again, not a single money-making wrestler main event person. The name they started, you know, out of training with in their first match, that is not the character. That's not who they played in that main event that they got to. Yeah. Everyone grows and evolves. So nowadays you see a lot of people really married to like one personality, one character for themselves. Like, oh, here I am. It's like, no, it's no good.
That's definitely something I've been hearing a lot of. I don't train or anything, but I have a lot of friends that do train or are like pursuing professional wrestling and whatnot. And and then I've had a lot of these conversations with wrestlers and people in the industry. And I think one of the things that I've learned from talking to people and just listening to their stories is not to get married to an idea that could be a detriment to you. Because if you get married to an idea and don't have the willingness to grow, then sometimes when you do make it to one of these mainstream companies or something, then they tell you to do something different. Like you've got to be prepared to do something different. You know, and I think a perfect example of that would be like Sami Zayn, who's probably the most over guy right now in the WWE with the bloodline. Hilarious anytime he's on the screen. Is a part of a heel group, but is somehow the biggest baby face. And But then he was El Generico. I know we're not supposed to say that on the Independence. Like, you know, if you listen to other like old timers that worked with him back in those days, he was very stuck on that idea, and he was married to, and he didn't want to take the mask off. He didn't want to talk. And then he got signed to NXT, and he had to drop everything. Yeah. And we've seen the slow progression of Sammy, and he's changed a lot even there in his WWE career. He's not the same Sammy that made his debut on the main roster in 2016 either. And it's like, that's what tells you got to continuously evolve and change and mix it up. And I just think you got to start doing that. Like, as soon as, like, I don't know, you've probably trained some people and worked with younger people, but I feel like once you got those fundamentals down and you can put on a good match, okay, now it's up. Now it's time to be like, okay, so who am I? Well, I can do this part. Like, who am I?
I think it's a weird world when I meet like new like trainee students, and I'm like, "What's your character? Who are you?" And they're like, "I don't know." And they're like, well, "What do you want to be?" I don't know. And it just blows my mind because like when I got into wrestling, man, I wanted to be the Undertaker. I thought it was so cool. I was like, I want to be the Undertaker. By the way, like I'm talking like 30 minutes into my first wrestling lesson, I was like, okay, not the Undertaker. Yeah. Got it. But you know, and then you know, I started to kind of evolve who I became today. But yeah, it's a weird mentality to have. And back to Sami Zayn there years ago in Montreal, I just come back from an injury. And one of my first matches back was with Kevin Steen, and Sami Zayn was there. And I thought, man, I remember wrestling these guys, and I was like, man, these guys are awesome. I didn't wrestle Sami Zayn, just Kevin Steen. Yeah. And I thought, oh man, they're so good. And at the time they were like the best in that area by far. Yeah. But seeing them on WWE TV now, after they've had a chance to work with the Triple H's and the Shawn Michaels and you know, Matt Blooms and stuff like that, they're light years ahead of where they were when I was in that ring. Yeah. So and that's because they're working with the best in the world. WWE is still the best in the world, no matter how you cut it.
No, 100%, and it forces you to step up your game. Who else have you worked with? Who are some other big names that you've been out there and got to wrestle?
So, I mean, not too many. I wrestled Tommy Dreamer. You know, I mean, everyone's wrestled Tommy Dreamer. But he liked it, so that's the difference between me and his other matches, I guess. I wrestled Low Key. I wrestled a ton of name guys. Bobby Roode.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah.
I remember with Bob having that match, and I just, for whatever reason, couldn't get my head in the game that day. And he would start, you know, calling stuff and asking me to do stuff like I can't do. He just like assumed I could. And I was too embarrassed to say, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just did it. It was a really liberating experience in my career. But I think like probably like, I don't know if this is like name droppy enough or not. But when I took my first bumps in Canada in Toronto, since I was at the time I was considered a smaller guy, so they shipped me off to Mexico City to get started out there and learn lucha. And back then, people would make fun of lucha, like it was not what it is today. Now it's like it's so mainstream, right? But then I used to get teased by the bigger wrestlers, like, "Oh, that dancey stuff, it ain't no good." But I tell you, best training I ever had, I was at CMLL with Tony Salazar, and I got a chance to like work with so many awesome dudes there, and everything that I can do in the ring is because of that. That's amazing. Oh, here's some name droppy stuff for you. So I started out, it's like Tracy Brooks was there, Gail Kim was there. Yeah. You know, so like that sort of era, that Toronto era of people. You know, I drove Gail Kim to her very first WWE tryout.
Oh, that's insane. Have you ever had a WWE tryout?
I went to a couple of those like ones where like before, I don't know if it was before or during Tough Enough, but it was like they do like a cattle call of like 50 local wrestlers. Yeah. I remember actually there's probably an old photo in like a local newspaper in Oshawa. Like they would just make us like run up and down stairs and do squats and stuff. And me and Cody Deaner are in this like one photo. And I remember when they finally asked, they're like, okay, get in the ring and wrestle. Me and Deaner like looked at each other like from across the ring and jumped in. We're like, yeah, we're good. Because like we were just too nervous to get in there with anybody else. And I remember Fit Finley would get really pissed off. Because you'd like jump over the top rope and go, oh, hey, you can't do that. You know, you make us look like shit. You jump over the top rope and make us guys look like we can't do it.
They don't like the lucha shit.
No, I was like, hey, man, sorry, we can't all come to the ring with an LP Lele, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy, though. Like, you've seen the change in wrestling now. Like, what's accepted now that wasn't accepted back then. Like, you almost wonder if, like, you were ahead of your time.
So, for me, I would say I was ahead of my time, but I had an appreciation for things that existed other places. Yeah. Right now, with the internet being the way it is, like there's this kind of wrestling is a global community, you know, and we watch Japanese wrestling, we watch, you know, Mexican wrestling, we watch UK wrestling, and we all kind of borrow from each other now. But back then, that accessibility just wasn't there. So when I went to Mexico, And the psychology is so different.
Yeah.
But you know, it was explained to me, and I was observant. I paid attention. It makes all the sense in the world to me. The psychology they have there, actually, in a lot of ways, makes more sense than the psychology we have here in North America. And but I wouldn't try to do that in front of a North American audience. It was always about like what audience you're in front of, right? Like if I'm at some, you know, outdoor fairground show in front of a bunch of little kids who don't know nothing about nothing, I'm going to wrestle a certain way for that audience. I'll be me, but it'll be the carnival fairground little kid version of me, you know? And if I'm wrestling in like the rickshaw theater with like these super loud, rowdy punk rock, heavy metal people, it's also going to be me, but I'm going to wrestle for that audience. You know, you're going to hear some cuss words, and, you know, they're going to see some off-color stuff a little more. In front of the kids, you know? So I think it's the same thing. Mexican audience, I'm going to wrestle for Mexican audience. And Alabama, I'll wrestle for Alabama. In New York, I'll wrestle for a New York audience, etc. So
you wrestled for a bunch of years. When did you decide you wanted to get into promoting and starting WrestleCore?
So years ago, the guy showed me my first bumps and feelers. We started a company called BSE, Blood, Sweat, and Years. And that show toured all the way up to Toronto, up to none of it, and back again. Very wildly successful. And we were the promotion that put Christian and Lance Storm in the ring together for the first time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Lance Storm and his gym had that big poster on the wall. It was awesome. And we had like every Team Canada member 100 times and stuff like that. Anyway, that I had such a negative experience with that, though, because I got the short end of it. I got shafted hard on that. I swore I'd never do another show again until I met the smoking hot, crazy, fiery, super challenging, amazing woman who would become my wife, Calamity Kate. And mother of my child. And she was like, let's make a show together. And I was like, no, I swore I'd never do another show. Get out of here. And she was like, do it. And I was like, okay. that very first show was the very first Lucha Libre Spectacular at the Waldorf in Vancouver.
Okay.
And at the time, it was the largest drawing independent wrestling show in Vancouver.
Oh, wow. When was that?
That was, Kate, when was that? Actually, not it's on my Instagram somewhere.
Okay, yeah.
Feature like Puma King, Bestia 666, Ray Horace, Sinn, Bodhi, a lot of others. So it was pretty wild. You know, we transformed that space into this whole like block of Mexico City all of a sudden.
That's crazy.
That's evolved. Calamity Kate, myself, and our third producing partner, Chris Steffler, who's super talented. We put those things on every summer. Where they're now like 2-day events, and they're absolutely
That's what I came to when I came to that show recently, right?
Yeah. I forgot. You came on the Sunday, right?
I did. I came on the Saturday, not Sunday. I came the first day.
Oh, the first day. One of the best matches I've ever seen live in my life was Greg Sharp versus Ciclo Ramirez Jr.
Okay.
And it's on our YouTube channel.
Okay, well, there you go. It's on the YouTube channel. I want you to check it out. So that one show led to you being like, well, we should start our own promotion, or?
So what happened was I had such a good time. I was like really nervous doing it, especially it was my first time hosting a show, really. Because I didn't want to wrestle on my own show. I found it's kind of a conflict of, you know, energy. Conflict of energy, you know, dispersion, whatever.
You didn't want to be the Vern Gagne or Fritz Von Erich of WrestleCore.
Exactly. Yeah. And but I had such a good time doing it. Amazing time, and more importantly, the people I worked with had an amazing time.
Okay.
The wrestlers there loved it, and I turned to Kate afterwards. I was like, "Thanks for pushing me into this." And most like indie promotions, they're sort of like a sitcom that you got to follow along show to show. It's like Friends, you know, is Ross going to bang Rachel or not? I got to tune in. But I hate that because like the truth of the matter is a handful of the audience is a regular audience. Usually it's new people, and even if they are regular, they probably don't remember. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
So I always treated our shows as like a movie. You know, walk in, you walk out, you're said. You didn't need any backstory. And this is really how we kind of introduced pro wrestling to a lot of new people in Vancouver. Yeah. And to this point, we were talking earlier about Bray Wyatt and how he became this creative. I don't like making shows for other people. I like making shows for two reasons, and that's something I want to see and to impress my wife.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. and so our shows are definitely alternative format, alternative content, and it's something different. And it's not a low budget version of AEW or WWE or whatever. It's its own thing. You know, it's punk rock, dirty.
It's the indie promotion. It's a standalone. It's not because I guess you're right. Mostly like some wrestling companies want to have the stories and the characters and show that. The other ones will book matches and tournaments, and they try to have really competitive matches and whatnot, but it's nothing really making it stand out. Like, what makes WrestleCore different than what makes it stand out?
So that's the thing. So we started it. So it was just one off until during the pandemic, we decided to make it WrestleCore. WrestleCore has really only existed since May 14th of this year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. The very first WrestleCore match was the main event of like the last one-off show we did. That was Zicky Dice was the feature in that match.
Yeah.
Bro, the outlandish Twitch sensation, man, he brought it. He's so underutilized everywhere. He's amazing.
No, he is. He's great. Yeah, I did a giveaway with him one time. It was a good time.
Dude, he's a good dude. Solid. And so then the actual debut of WrestleCore was actually in Prince George for FanCon. We sold out the Kin 3 Arena. Bret Hart opened that show for us.
So that's because I remember all of this.
Yes.
So it really is that recent.
Yeah, WrestleCore is super new, dude. And here's the thing: a lot of like shows, good or bad, been around 20 years or 1 year or whatever. They're very stagnant, right? It's just the same show, and it hasn't done anything or gone anywhere. I'm super proud of the fact that like the wrestlers who work on WrestleCore they've worked so hard that they're getting booked all over the place, and WrestleCore didn't like help them get booked, but I wanted a platform where they felt like empowered, because they've been sitting here spinning their wheels for a while.
Yeah,
we've grown a YouTube channel. We're on Title Match Network with 2.2 million subs on YouTube. Yeah, I got some really dope announcements for 2023. And one of them been soft announced already, which we can talk about. But it's growing and evolving like crazy. I think you'll really dig about WrestleCore. So there's a lot of unique features about it. Yeah, and one of them is, like I love the Rickshaw Theater. Like I go there for other shows. I love that venue. Yeah, it's so awesome. But only so many people can get in there. So for me, a big part of it is getting it on the screen, getting it to different markets. So not only do we publish it on the YouTube channel, people actually stream that show like the way a video game streamer streams it, and post it out. Like Barbie Biel out of Mexico City, she had 10,000 views on that first show she did for us. Yeah, which is absolutely wild. You know what I mean? Santino Marella helped out doing a stream version of that very first May 14th show. So there's like different versions of WrestleCore shows out there for people to watch. If you want to watch like the original one, with like Vinny the Voice and his local commentary partners, you tune into our YouTube channel. Yeah, you can catch it on like Holden Albright's channel, all over the place.
And you guys have already I remember the Bret Hart thing. You guys had you had Trey Miguel in there. Like you've had shows with some big names coming in and stuff. And I think the best analogy you gave us a couple of minutes ago was, like I was saying, those wrestling shows and there's the wrestling shows under the story stuff. I like the idea of like it being a movie. Yes, because the idea of it being a movie is like, you're gonna go into that movie and you're gonna get everything you need in that one show. And then the movie's over, right? Like it's not like if it was by the time you come to the next one, it's a whole different movie with a whole different set of characters and a set. But like looking at it that way, it doesn't make it seem like just another wrestling show with matches that are going to be really good. And it also is not like the soap opera week show to show. It's you got to follow along the characters and they're growing and whatnot. It's like you're going to come. This is the movie. This is the cast. We're going to put on a great show for you. And maybe you like it, maybe you won't, but in this one night, you're going to get a conclusion and a story that starts at the beginning and it's going to end by the end of the night, but you're going to have a whole conclusion. And I think that's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, no, thank you for that. And by the way, I'm totally going to bring on trolls by saying this following thing. Okay. No one's left the show unhappy. Every audience member who's left the show, they leave the show like out of like over the moon happy. But here's the fun thing about it. I hate it if someone in the audience can leave that show and explain what they just saw to somebody else. If they're able to explain what they saw, I've done something wrong.
I think that's fair because like when I ask you like what makes you different compared to the other independent wrestling companies, I think that would be it. Because if I talk to one company, their biggest goal is to, create a show that's a TV program and to be streaming that way. And they will put on really good matches and stuff. But sometimes I feel like it's just, some really good matches. And there's another company that's, I know they're really big into, they want to build the characters and the stories and bring you back because you are following along with the characters and stories. And I think with yours, now you tell me it's a movie and you look at the posters. The vibe.
Very different vibe.
I mean, we'll talk about the posters in a second. Okay. The vibe. And then also, like, even like the show I came to, the lucha show, like, maybe it wasn't a movie in one night, but by the second night, the idea has been completed. You know what I mean? I was like two nights, one movie, but like, you know, like, I get it, you know.
26 matches that weekend. 26 matches that weekend.
Crazy.
But to throw this in about like the actors, you know, the wrestlers in the thing, you come back to see the movie with the same actor, the same cast. I'm going to highlight. So what the only storylines we really had with WrestleCore was to establish character. Yeah. So like when Michael Richard Blaze, the founding father and savior of the Clandestine Society, he does that gimmick at different shows. But I just feel like WrestleCore, he's the most Michael Richard Blaze. Michael Richard Blaze, Michael Richard Blaze. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the guy's a genius. I love the way his brain thinks. I love working with him. And every time, my only complaint, I find sometimes he reins himself in a little too much. So I was going to push him. I say, hey, that thing that you don't think you should do. He's like, yeah. I'm like, do that twice. Do that more. You know? And I want people to really come out of their shells and be more themselves than they can be anywhere else.
You want it to be wild. You want people leaving without knowing what they just saw. And I think that's what makes it unique. Like I said, it's like a movie. Sometimes you walk out of a movie and you're like, I don't know what that was, but I enjoyed it. I mean, I still don't understand how Once Upon a Time in Hollywood really ended, but like, I would watch it again.
I'll even simplify that. You know, like Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
You know, the tubes and stuff like that. I don't know what those tubes do, but they just like look right to me. I'm like, oh, that's the tube that makes it fly. Like it just looks right. So
it doesn't need to be that serious, but it can be fun and you can enjoy what you're seeing. And as long as you've established, because it's different if you. I think the most important thing is establishing what your company is and going with it. And if you're establishing that's what you do, then that's cool. If you're saying you're trying to do something else, but you're not doing that, then it's like, okay, they lost the plot, but you know what you're doing. So like,
well, we always try to get like way more ambitious show to show. Like we're always kind of raising up that level somehow. And I mean, some of it's like dicey, like we had this like Invisible Man segment on the last show, and it was like dicey. We had no idea that was going to work, but like we had like a guy come out on stage and get invisible behind a screen. Like it was pretty wild. Again, it'll be up on YouTube soon enough.
Yeah,
my description won't do it justice, but we haven't figured it out. We're always trying new things, you know. And I don't know, probably strike out on 9 out of 10 of these things,
but you gotta try it. No one else is gonna try it. I'll tell you now, none of the other companies in Vancouver is gonna try them. That's what makes you stand out.
Well, actually, you know what Boom, we talked about Boom earlier, and I love what they're doing. I love what they're doing. There's this like element, this like kind of writer's room element to it that I just love. And
but that's because they come from the TV world and they want to give us a character TV show. Like I had them on the show, and that was the biggest thing. Is like we actually want it to like be, if you come to one show, you want to come back to the next one because you fell in love with this character and you want to see what happens to him. But that's what makes them stand out, right? Which is totally cool.
Even like their posts on social and stuff like that. Like you look at the art direction, instantly got my interest.
I know I gave them but in the same way. They do that, and I told them that I noticed that, and that really stood out to me. I thought that was super cool because I didn't see independent wrestling companies, especially here in Vancouver, doing anything like that, right? I'm like those Halloween ones in front of with the candy, and now these ones with the art. I'm like, oh, this is cool, and it probably makes the wrestlers feel cool, and it just seems like a bigger deal. Yeah, you guys' posters are like. My language, they're fucking sick. Like you guys have sick posters. Every time you guys draw posters, I'm like, I like you said, it's like an old school movie poster, and I'm like, oh, I want to go see this. Like, who's behind the posters? Whose idea was that? Because they're great.
So the very first lucha show we did,
I
got in touch with a guy. You'd find him online as Combination 13. I don't know if he wants me saying his like shoot name or not. We'll call him Combination 13. And he does like he works for so many different bands. He works for Parallel 49. He's a really, really popular local artist, and like he's gets work out of the UK and all over the place. He's awesome, and he just liked wrestling. And he said, hey, do you mind if I draw something for you? And honestly, I didn't really think much of it at the time. And as soon as I saw the first draft, I was like, okay, we're gonna be friends now, and I can't do a show without him. He does every single thing we do, even the photographic posters we do. He does the individual like little graphics. He doesn't do those, but he creates every single logo, every single mainstay poster. And I'll be perfectly honest when I say this. Sometimes we come up with a name for a show. I don't know what the show is yet. I just like the way the name sounds.
Yeah, but that's part of it, though. Like, you know what I mean? And sometimes after you get that name, you probably like, oh, we can build the show around this name. We kind of know what we can do here.
Well, the way it starts there, but then he'll make a graphic for it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, the graphic means this, and like it's this very kind of organic circle to create something. Like we did a show called BattleWorld’88, which wound up being a choose your own adventure show where the audience chose the wrestlers and match types.
Yeah.
And like a retro video game almost.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was until about 5 days before.
But you see, like, you're coming there for this experience and you're only going to get it this one time. Maybe you'll do it again sometime in the future, but every time you come, it's something different. And I think that's the exciting part about it, right? Like, but it's never going to be like a dull moment. You guys are going to try stuff. You're going to try this Invisible Man guy. You're going to have the mini-me guy there. You're going to do stuff that other companies might not want to do because they want to be either taken seriously or they got a plot that they're following. There's no plot. You're not necessarily trying to be taken seriously. You're a serious company, but you're not trying to be taken seriously. You want people to come there and have a good time. So
exactly. Well, you know, I'm not doing, you know, like we don't do this because we want to, you know, have a bad time. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
Yeah. Right. Like, you know, you could be, you know, an influencer for, you know, H&R Block.
Yeah.
It's boring, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
How do you guys come up with the title? The championship title, because when I saw that thing, I'm like, that is the craziest looking world title I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you so much. It is a wild. It is the
I don't know. I wish I had a picture to pop up right now. Maybe I'll figure something out. But like,
I'll try to send you some stuff.
Yeah.
So what happened was when we decided to make it WrestleCore, when Calamity Kate and I decided to make it a regular ongoing show, you need a champion, you need a title. Yeah. And there are some beautiful title belts out there, and I've always really liked like unique ones that kind of stood out, like Defy's belts. They're badass belts. But even I felt if I tried something different like that, I'm still just trying to kind of knock that off, and I wanted something that stood out and was different on its own. So originally the idea was to have these kind of like painted plates with like LED lights around them.
Okay.
And a friend of mine, Paul, he's a wickedly talented tattoo artist at a Black Rider. He was like that won't work. And it won't look right. And he suggested glass instead. I go, oh, glass. Okay, I like glass. Glass is a fucking nightmare. No. But I was thinking at the same time, I'm thinking, okay, I want to. WrestleCore acknowledges all different promotions, acknowledges all different champions and stuff. There's heavyweight and there's world and there's, you know, universal champions. I go, I'm going to recognize all those, but I also want to take a shit on them. So let's call it the Infinite Championship. And Infinite Mirrors, boom, came to my head. So it's this like Mad Max, Road Warrior, Blade Runner, again, kind of cyberpunk title, and it's the meanest looking title in the world. It's
really cool looking. Because I saw it that first time, I'm like, oh, that's like, I've never seen a title like that. One, it's like it's lights on it. It's like flashing. Like, this is insane. And like honestly, when like I was at an outside show, obviously, and it was dark, and you see that belt, and you're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you should come see that thing up close and in person. Actually, this mask is a little. I mean, you can see it's like a little homage to that. I got like little skulls, stuff on it. These things whip me in the eye all the time. It's great. But you know, that's the kind of art direction that we go with for sure. So, but we got some team titles coming up for 2022. Okay. So, and those will be again very unique.
I'm looking forward to see what they look like.
I'm looking forward to seeing the team that can wear them.
That's true too. That's true too. How many shows do you guys do a year?
So I think so. We started officially in May. I think we did 10 shows.
Yeah.
I mean, the goal is always to do like a monthly regular show, but sometimes that just doesn't line up. Like we didn't do anything for October.
I try to do 2 of these interviews a month, and sometimes I got like 1 or 0.
Well, we had some months where we did like 3 shows in a month.
Yeah. It usually comes down to like scheduling, I guess, and like trying to get people booked and venue and all that, right?
For me, again, I love the Rickshaw Theater, and with COVID, like so many different great music venues kind of had to shut their doors, and the Rickshaw, through a lot of strategy, stayed open, and now they're like booked solid.
Yeah.
And I could do a show a lot of different places, but WrestleCore, man, that's the house of WrestleCore right there. And
were you involved with wasn't there like a wrestling company called Rickshaw for a bit with Kenny Lush?
So Kenny Lush, Kenny Lush, who's amazing.
Yeah.
Him and another guy named Tom P started a thing called Wise Pro Wrestling. And
Wise Pro, that's what it was called. And I was always at the Rickshaw. I went to like 2 or 3 of their shows.
Smartest booking, best run show by far. Love it. Love what they did. And they had some life obstacles, and so they decided not to run anymore. And the Rickshaw was up for grabs. And I asked Kenny, I said, hey, what are you doing with it? And he said, hey, Snake Money.
Yeah.
Why don't you run a show in there? And I was like, with his blessing. And every production meeting we have, I make sure I acknowledge it's because of Kenny Lush that we're allowed to do these shows here. Yeah. And honestly, I feel like we're just sort of keeping it warm until he wants to.
You know what? I went, I went to a couple of like 2-3 Wise Pro shows, and I talk about this, and your guys' atmosphere is exactly the same. And I'm like, I understand the reasonings behind why people do certain things and stuff. But I was like, at one point, a lot of the shows here were family friendly.
Yes.
And super family oriented. So it was like kids and parents and regulars like that. And I was like, I don't know. Sometimes I think for a good wrestling show, you need to let like the people drink. Like you need to be able to sell booze and let the people have a good time, and they'll loosen up and they'll enjoy the show even more.
It's just like anything, right? Like say use an analogy in movies, right? Like I like Toy Story 2. But also like maybe I want to go watch Showgirls, or what's one of those new Annabelle or
something crazy, or a horror film or something, and like. And that's what I was like when I would come to a rickshaw show after. And don't get me wrong, like some of the shows when they're on the Commodore, they'd be a little bit more lit or whatnot. But I remember coming to rickshaw shows. I'm like, oh, this, and I remember it was like 19 plus. I remember one time I actually tried to bring my cousin. He was 18, but it was 19 plus. And I was like, oh, this is a vibe. This is a different vibe because you can come in. It's literally like going to a concert with your friends.
Exactly.
And just you can get lit. You have a show and. It's fun, and even someone that may not like I've taken friends that weren't still aren't the biggest wrestling fans, but they'd had the time of their life.
Well, I'd say like especially with like the WrestleCore shows, they're definitely like a crossover in terms of audience. Like you don't have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of shows where like if you're not a wrestling fan, you're not
gonna enjoy it, and that's what I was trying to say. Like I think that's what would make your company stand out because it seems like it's an experience, right? Like I said, there's some companies that want to put on really good wrestling matches and have a really strong card, but then if you try to go to friends of mine that aren't really wrestling fans, they don't care how strong the card is. They don't even know the big name that you're bringing in that's supposed to be like, you know what I mean? So like how am I like some of the events I've gone to that I've taken friends to that have had the most fun is it'd be like something wacky. Like I remember I took one of my closest friends since high school. He probably hasn't watched wrestling since like 2004. I think like the last WrestleMania he watched with me was like the Shawn Michaels Triple H Benoit one in 2004. That's why that comes to my mind. But like I remember I took him to a show. I'm like, yeah, I had to go to this wrestling show. I'm like, do you want to come with me? He's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, yeah, it's a bring your own weapons match. And he like went to his garage. He grabbed like a grass hockey stick, and then he's like, let's go. And like the fact that like they used just grass hockey stick, like he stole it back. He's like,
Ma, where's the extra cheese grater?
Yeah, and he was just so happy. Like they used my grass hockey stick, and like you know what I mean? It's just like to make it an experience rather than just sit there, clap, cheer, watch a show, and be grateful for the wrestling. That only works if they're already wrestling fans. It doesn't work if like
I get a nice little off-color anecdote for you.
Yeah.
So I think one of the reasons why like wrestling fans or even non-fans get really into the shows, as opposed to watching it on a movie screen or like a band on stage, like man, it's visceral. Like you can reach out and touch them. You can smell these guys, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And so I'm known for making sure the shows have a lot of audience interaction. A lot of guys go flying out of the ring. A lot of wrestlers go flying out of the ring into the audience.
Yeah.
And we had this disabled lady in like one of those rascal scooters decide to put in the front row for some reason. And this handler guy was helping her out because he goes, hey, she almost got hit on that dive. You got to do something about it. I go, where is she? Oh my God. I want to take her. Where's she? She goes, she's right in the front row. I go, well, can you help? I go, yes, I can help. She goes, what are you going to do? I go, get her the fuck out of the front row. Get her in the back. It's supposed to be. I go that front row, and I do a little PSA at the beginning of every show where I say to the people in the front row, I go, hey, I hope you move quick because that's the splash zone.
Yeah,
you will get wet.
100%, and that's fair. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, if you're creating an experience for people, and like I was there, man, people were having the time of their life, and you could tell there were some people there that weren't lifelong wrestling fans. There were lifelong wrestling fans there for sure. I met them. I talked to them. They were wearing vintage merch and stuff, and I thought it was super cool. But there was people there that, they're not huge wrestling fans, but they were just having a blast. Seeing these guys flying around, jumping over the ropes, and like getting close to them and stuff. Like everybody wanted to be near the ring, and that's the thing too. Like I remember taking non-wrestling fans to shows, and when they first see the ring, they're like, oh, they have like some sort of nostalgic feel, like, oh, I know what that is, and like, oh, I've always, as a kid, like I always thought about like running in a ring or something. Like it's like, listen, I don't watch baseball, I don't watch football, right? I watched hockey growing up, basketball and stuff. Like I don't watch football, I don't watch baseball. I played baseball as a kid with my friends in the cul-de-sac. I love playing football with my friends. You know, I love playing Madden. You know what I mean? So like,
but if you like walked into the park and you like you saw a baseball diamond, you'd be like, oh,
I love going to baseball games. You'll never catch me watching it on TV. I love going to when I was in California for 6 months, I went to like so many A's and Dodgers games because my family would get like tickets and like, do you want to go? And I'm like, hell yeah! Like I don't know any player on the team, but just the atmosphere, grabbing a hot dog, having a drink, watching baseball. I'm like, this is American pastime, and I'm here for it.
One of my very first dates with Calamity Kate. I don't know how we stumbled across Canucks tickets. She's like this punk rock chick, the establishment, the patriarchy. I'm this like artsy fool who like, you know, doesn't know anything about sports. And we wound up at this Canucks game together. And the electricity in the place was like, wow, you know, but I couldn't help but be a jerk, right? And there's this like guy beside me, he's like a super hardcore fan. I'm like, hey, how many innings are in this match anyway? You know, and he was so mad. I'm just joking around, right? Yeah. I agree. I was like, is it halftime yet? You know?
It's so funny. People are like, they're really passionate about these sports fans, you know?
Oh, shit,
you start cheering for the other team for fun and stuff. It's like, it's bad, man.
You shouldn't yell, go blue.
But like, no, it's true. And then like, it's like, even like, I remember I took a couple of friends to a Seattle WWE show, and this was like 2013. It was the Slammies, and one of my friends totally wasn't a wrestling fan anymore. And one was when he was a kid, like hardcore, but like just wasn't his thing no more. Like he moved on to sports and UFC and stuff. Like he still loved wrestling, had appreciation for it, but like he knew who everybody was, but he didn't like watch it every week and stuff. Yeah. And Brett came out.
Okay.
Bret Hart, because it was the Slammies. They had Brett there and Sean and everybody. And this guy was screaming like an 8-year-old for Brett. And we were like in the lower bowl, but like on the far side, and Brett's on the. I'm like, he can't hear you, but he's screaming like with so much, like that commercial, like, Brett.
Energy that's like infectious, right?
Yeah, I'm like, you know, for me, like as someone who's still a wrestling fan, like that made me so happy that I could bring someone to a show like this, and they could catch that feeling still. And he doesn't even watch every week anymore because that's what live entertainment does for you. And that's why I always encourage people. I'm like, even if you're not a fan, hey, you want to go out to a club or something after, you have plans for after, go to the wrestling show first and go to whatever you want after. But like, it's a great way to kick off your night. Trust me, like it's a good time.
Well, you know, so for years I'd always avoided like video and like having like a film crew in at the shows and stuff for that exact reason. Like I wanted this like live visual experience. I hated looking at things through a screen.
Yeah,
and I would really like, you know, was like, okay, yeah, we got to get in front of a screen now. And I get this awesome film crew. This guy acts as our head of film, and Gearbase is really helpful. What they've been able to do is they've been able to really like not shoot it like a WWE or an AEW or another indie. They shoot it like this like punk rock video. Like it's really in there. They capture that vibe. You know, I mean, we're still figuring it out. It's always getting a bit better. But if you look at like the first set of videos compared to now, like what years?
I think you guys are the punk rock band of professional wrestling in Vancouver.
Yeah, you know,
you guys are the underground
wrestling company of Canada, currently on our way to being that of the world.
No, 100%. Because I don't think a lot of people have that atmosphere. Like every other wrestling company has some sort of, which they're all doing great, but they have their own certain goal of what they want to be and what they're presenting and what they're putting out there. And not all promoters see eye to eye, because I remember going to the Defy show and being like, "Oh, this is cool, man. This is like they were involved, man. They knew all the chants. They knew what to say and what not to say, and the 1, 2, 3. Like that's where I first heard it years ago. Like I'm like, like that was an atmosphere, but some promotions don't want that atmosphere. They want it to be more. You know, so it's like once you establish, like I said, once you establish what you are, then you're doing something super.
I think like again, we don't really know what we are yet, but I know what I like and I know what I don't like, and I just double down on stuff I like, and weirdly like-minded people, you know, like you know the guys from Boom, stuff like that. You know, we get along weirdly enough. Go figure, we get along.
Yeah.
So, and I'm happy to kind of just be that helpful, supportive person as best I can be, because like. The old school mentality. I was in Edmonton for a while. Lost a bet, and I found myself living in Edmonton for a few months. Both.
Yeah,
like a couple little indie companies, and they've been running the same type of little indie show for like decades.
Yeah. What's the scene like out there? What is the scene like in Edmonton?
And I think like some of the most talented wrestlers in Canada are coming out of there. You know, like obviously like Michael Richard Blaze is the Infinity Champion.
Yeah,
you know, that monster. You know, his Stephen Crow's part of the Clandestine Society. Taryn from Accounting. Watch her.
Yeah,
you know, that's all I gotta say. There's some amazing talent coming out of there, but the actual companies that are out there, they're They've been the same company for decades, and they don't feel like changing. They don't feel like working with others and being friendly.
No, 100%. Well, that's what I like about right now. Like you said, you got a relationship with Boom and stuff and whatnot. But I'm like, it's like all like out of the 3 companies that I know of right now, and I know there's more. But out of NEW, Boom, and WrestleCore, all 3 companies have totally different identities. And I think that's the cool part. That's what, like a lot of places have indie companies, but they're all kind of trying to do the same thing. They'll book the card, they'll bring someone in, maybe they'll have championship matches, maybe some stipulation matches here, but it's basically the same thing. But you guys are all 3 different goals and want 3 different things, and you're using a lot of the same talent, which is cool. Yeah. But we get to see those talent even do different things in different companies.
Yes. Well, you know, growing up, I was always a comic book guy.
Yeah.
And so I love, like, you know, I didn't read Wolverine comics. I read X-Men comics. I like the ensemble thing. So all these wrestlers work on all these different companies, but they bring something very different to each one too. And like, I've promoted a lot of shows in my day. Never once have I like not sold a ticket because that wrestler was on a different show. Quite the opposite. That wrestler was on a different show, did a good job. I sold 2 tickets because they were on my show.
No, 100%. Yeah.
You know, it's good for business. But that kind of brand identity we're talking about, I find like a lot of wrestling shows, they know they need a poster. They know it's supposed to look like this, or they know they're supposed to do this, but they're not really considering or thinking why. Whereas the shows that tend to do really well out there, they have a brand identity. They're doing these things with a purpose. That's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. If this is me saying this, if I get in trouble, it's me. I think NEW,
trolls, what you got?
No, I just like, if I get in trouble, I get in trouble. I think NEW is like the wrestling company that's going to give you that posters and give you a stack card and some really good wrestling and some great championship matches and whatnot with some crazy production, like some crazy production. Like it's like great production, like in terms of their stage and all that. And that's what they are. And then I look at Boom and I go there and I'm like, I want to go there, and rightfully so, like to see what the Abraham Lincoln does on the next show, where who is actually going to beat Brady and his cocky Sachin, and you know what I mean. Like I want to see the continuation of these story arcs and these characters, and that makes sense because these are guys coming from the TV world. NEW makes sense because these are guys coming from the sports and finance world. They're going to be able to have the production. They're going to be able to sell you on the sport aspect of wrestling. Boom's going to sell you on this wacky world and character storyline week to week. You got to be here. You're going to miss something wrestling. And then you guys are like, we're fucking going to throw everything at the wall. You have the greatest time of your life. Our posters look like movies and comic books. And you're going to leave here once again being like, I don't know what I just saw, but I liked it.
It's funny when you're describing
it was crazy. The wrestlers were all over the place, jumping on us and stuff. It was an experience, and I think Vancouver is in a really cool place right now with professional wrestling. There's been a lot of changes over the past couple of years.
Oh yeah,
there's no longer here. There's you know, ASW is still doing its thing too. Don't get me wrong. So that's like an OG company that's been
new owners with All Star. Yeah,
been here forever, and they are like, if there's like a heritage company here now, it's them. Like they're like.
Yeah, I'm not getting
OGs, yeah, but outside of that, like we're in a really cool place right now. I think.
Somebody asked me a few days ago. They're like, "Do I think Vancouver, the Pacific Northwest, or whatever, is going to be the next mecca of wrestling, like the way the UK blew up a couple years ago and stuff?" I said, I feel it's kind of there. I feel it's kind of there right now. It's just the truth of the matter is, travel sucks going east and west. It's super expensive and super long.
Yeah, and I think that's always the biggest struggle, especially east and west, when you want to even go from Canada to the States to the States into Canada. If you go east to west within the States, you're even better off. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's why, you know, and for many years, a lot of people would be like, well, Pacific Northwest is great, but it's like, it's hard to get to. Like, even just the whole West Coast is tough. Like, California's got a scene because California is huge.
Yes.
Right? Seattle, if you ask me, there was a couple there, but Defy's the only one that really found a way to make themselves stand out some. And I think it was for those things that they found ways that they could stream the shows, let people watch them, bring names in, but be like, no, you can still watch your matches, which was something 2 years ago when I was pitching this to companies that were operating. It's like, hey, why aren't you guys putting your shows on YouTube? It's like free, and like at least people could. You're putting on these great matches here. Nobody ever sees them.
Yeah, I agree. That's why, to your point, like it's funny, a lot of us, like, you know, I would say one of the problems with the wrestling industry is it's run by a bunch of dumb wrestlers. you know. And whenever you hear a wrestler say, "Oh, this is how it is," or "This is the only way to do something," it's a good indicator they don't know what they're talking about. So when someone like you brings an idea to the table, if you find you're getting a lot of pushback on it from somebody, don't, you know, like, you're not going to.
Because I came in with the social media idea, like, hey, you can literally reach everybody and anybody right now.
Yes.
How do you do that? Like you said, the Zicky Dice thing with the Twitch thing, like, that's huge. He has a big Twitch audience. Collaborating with him on that, massive. You know what I mean? Put it on Twitch, put it on YouTube. There's so many outlets. But if you are like, some companies be like, well, no, we want people to pay for it, so we want to put it behind a paywall, or we want to be on this site or that site. You can do that if you know some people and get it there, but you'll probably get there faster if you're just putting some content out there.
Well, so like, you know, we do, like, financially, we do okay at the live shows. So all the online efforts, like, I want the audience to have them for free, because again, the whole point of it is there's some really talented people who I personally really like. I consider them my friends. And I want them to have a platform where they can get seen by as many people as possible.
And that was always the biggest thing too, is like, it was the wrestlers. I'm like, yo, how are these wrestlers ever gonna get seen if you're not putting this stuff anywhere?
Yeah.
And nothing here majority of the time.
I said this like in a real dick way. I was like, hey guys, Vince McMahon ain't sitting in the back of the theater like scouting right now. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to tweet something once in a while if you want to get seen, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, I understand financially, like, finding someone that wants to film and hiring them, because most of them are going to want to get paid, and finding someone to edit it and do it. Like, it's a lot. I understand. It's a big task. It's not as easy as like, I'm going to film this on my phone and put it on YouTube. Like, you probably want it a little bit professional, but it'll be worth it for everybody. I always feel like, and if you want exposure and you want people to see it, like, you're gonna have to spend some money to make some money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I promise you I'll be able to mean stuff like that. So I'm gonna start as my preamble to this thing. Exactly. I'm gonna follow up on this point you're making.
No, go ahead. That was it.
There's a lot of inquiries now from wrestlers who want to come be on the show.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest red flags for me, and this is good advice to any indie wrestler out there, don't offer to come for free. And I'll tell you why. Because as soon as you say that to me, I think that's exactly what you're worth. You know, you don't deserve to get paid.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you know, yeah, a lot of wrestling shows go, oh, I need a free cameraman, or I need a free editor, I need this. You know, hey, can you make my poster for free? Can you do this for free? Everything should be paid. And if you're a wrestling show is not making enough money to pay an adequate fee for those things, you're not running a good show. And I'm not saying the content and the wrestlers are bad on your show. I'm saying you're not promoting a good show. You're not getting butts in the seats. You're not being interesting. That's your fault. And I get in this conversation with a lot of people. Say, oh, so-and-so's been around for a long time. I go, yeah, but if they couldn't put butts in the seats, then they don't deserve to be around any longer.
Yeah.
Make room for something new. You know, they need to make room for something that is going to put butts in the seats.
And you got to adapt to the changes. I think indie wrestling was a one way in the early 2000s, and I think now people are picking up on it, but for a bit there, like, nobody was really changing. I'm like, why wouldn't it? Does YouTube, like, YouTube is free. Just put it out there. Even, and the people sometimes will get like, well, we don't want to put it on YouTube and then have like only like 30 people view it. That's 30 more people that weren't there. So, like, you know, like,
don't get me wrong. I mean, like, my feelings are hurt. Like, we have some videos that like 10,000 views, and then we have videos that have like 150. And I'm like,
I know that's a whole different topic. We can talk about how social media messes with the mental health, but like, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you got, like, sometimes I'll post something, especially now with the algorithm, I'm trying to figure it out, because sometimes I'll post something and then we'll get like 10,000 likes, and then I'll post something else and they're gonna like 200 likes, and I'm like, what's going on here? Now at least you can hide the likes. Okay, I have 500,000 followers. Getting 200 likes with 500,000 followers does not look good, but I don't know what's going on. Like, you know, like,
well, for me, it's funny because I find if I put a lot of effort into a post, rarely does it break 1,000, you know, views. Like, maybe it gets 50 likes or something. But if I just half-ass, like, I got to take a piss, I'm running out the door, and I just want to post this thing real quick, and boom, all of a sudden it'll get like, you know, 17,000 views and get like 400 likes or whatever.
What was that really cool thing you guys are doing with the commentary thing, where people had the option to commentate over matches?
So, I love this. So this was kind of a unique brainchild where, you know, like a video game streamer, like you see the screen and they're like just in the bottom corner. Shit. That's how WrestleCore shows are presented. Okay. And so we film the thing, edit it, put it up, and there's commentary over it already. Like, we have a live commentary team. Yeah. So Vinny the Voice and whoever's commentary partner is that day. It's always a new partner. Yeah. We bring in a name for Vinny the Voice every show. And then we let people and I tell them, I go, you have full creative control. You can get drunk if you want. You can swear if you want. You can have a partner if you want. You can just sit there and say nothing if you want. You can do whatever you want on there. And at first it's a little awkward. They're like, oh, you give me too much, you know, leeway. But once they sort of have a bit of fun with it, I would say try a match or two. Try a match.
Yeah.
You know? And let me know how it goes, because a lot of them don't even know who these wrestlers are yet.
Yeah.
Right. But the concept of the match or whatever usually winds up hooking them. And like my favorite one is Barbie Viella out of Mexico City. And she's in San Diego now.
Yeah.
But she was like at Triple Mania. She's like a big, lucha libre influencer and stuff like that. She's like 10,000 views on her video in like a day. And the fun thing about it, if you go to the WrestleCore site, there's this section called Influence Champion. You can actually vote for one of the streams that you've seen. And at the end of this year, we're crowning our very first influence.
So they pick a match, and they basically, the original commentator that's already on there, you can't hear, and you just commentate over the match yourself?
Yeah, you just shit talk over the show. Yeah.
And this is a good way to get people to watch matches through influencers, because it gives them content for content, and they can commentate over, and that's right away just content generally.
Yeah, if you need your 40 hours on Twitch, or you need your, whatever, you haven't posted something in a month, it's an easy go-to for the creators.
And like, we're going to watch this match and we're going to commentate over it, and just do your thing. And you can try to be a commentator, or you can literally just commentate on the match and how you feel about it, what you're looking at.
Like the guys at Hot TV, guys at Hot TV for Cannabis Culture, and they got like 1 million or something, subscribers, and they just get high and watch the thing. I don't even know anybody's name.
And that's another thing. If you sit there with a buddy, like I've watched so much wrestling with my co-host for the TWC Show and other like friends of mine, where we're just sitting there, I'm like, bro, like, why isn't this the podcast? Like, we're just sitting here, like, there's some things obviously we wouldn't be able to say on the podcast that we say to each other, but for the most part, like, a lot of this is like funny shit. Like,
I tell her, market 19 plus when it goes on YouTube or whatever, because like you can get in trouble, because there's obviously like some off-color stuff happening in the actual video and the shows. But do whatever you want. If you want to make it family friendly and bleep it out, you can do that too.
That's super cool. But see, like, that's like, I'll give you guys the benefit of that. Like, that's realizing, okay, this is the thing now.
Yeah,
going with the times. Like, how can we not only just give more exposure to WrestleCore, but also to the talent that's wrestling here? Like, what else are we offering them? Like, hey, like, one of these influencers might just pick up your guys' match and be like, I want to commentate over this.
Yeah,
and that's more exposure to you. Like, I think like that was my thing. I'm not saying it now because I've seen the change now, but give it 3-4 years ago, I'm like, nobody was jumping on board with the social media stuff. They didn't get it. And I'm, without dropping a name, one of the bigger companies in the world, not the biggest one, so it's not them, don't worry. They're great at it, by the way. Like, the two big companies right now, AEW and WWE, killing with the social media. They get it, they understand it. There's another company that's got a TV deal, and they're on social media and stuff. I mean, they're on TV and whatnot. And I remember one of the people called me because we were discussing, like, working together and whatnot. Okay. And one of the first things he asked me was, why would we need a budget for social media? And that's how far gone everything was. You know what I mean? So it's great that you guys are doing stuff like that.
And to that point, there's so many people who just don't like the world thrives on change. The world thrives on evolving, growing.
It's gonna change in a few years again. There's gonna be something else. What? That all being said, like, okay, so where can people find WrestleCore, and what's the next one?
So my handles are all Fight Kobra Kai. Cobra's with a K. It's all one word. But just WrestleCore. Go to Instagram, WrestleCore, Twitter, WrestleCore, internet. Go to the website, WrestleCore, and you get like a lot of updates on there. rickshawtheater.com is the home for tickets for sure.
Yeah,
right. But the big thing I want to push is YouTube and the Title Match Network. The guys at Title Match Network were kind enough to take us on without really knowing who we were.
Yeah,
and loved it. They're doing a big drop this week of the original, the second Destroy Wrestling show, which is great for us because our first scheduled show of 2023, Destroy Wrestling 3, the Wrestleapocalypse. So like the first Destroy Wrestling, it was the apocalypse. We ended the world of wrestling with the exploding ring death match that failed horribly, which was awesome. The technician who was supposed to just hit the trigger got drunk and mistimed it.
Oh wow!
But apparently the same thing happened on AEW like a few months later.
It did. Yeah.
Who's ahead of the game, right?
Yeah, you guys did it first.
Yeah. And then the second one, since everyone died in Wrestling Apocalypse, they were all in hell, had to fight their way through hell. And this
is really like a movie. Every show is something totally different.
Oh yeah, and it's where they connect. Like they do still connect. And so with Destroy Wrestling 3 coming out, we destroyed the world, we fought through hell. Who knows what's next? There's only one way to find out. But what I will tell you, it's gonna be a metalicious good time. And you never seen anything like it.
Oh wow! Yeah. When is it and where is it?
January 20th at the historic Rick Shaw Theater in downtown Vancouver, baby.
That's sweet. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Guys, make sure you go follow them, check them out on YouTube, and check out WrestleCore.
And I do have one more thing, which I think you're going to pop for. Okay. So you mentioned like everyone kind of presents differently. Yeah. And I feel that the talent we have and WrestleCore, we can present any way we want. So we're getting a little sportsy as well, because we did the soft announcement of our second show of 2023. The official announcements will be coming out over the next week or two. We're going to do some talent drops. We're going to be doing a wrestling show for the Vancouver Warriors in the Rogers Arena in front of a few people on February 4th.
That is cool.
Yes, sir.
In Rogers Arena.
You got it.
Oh, and, wow, that's huge, dude. That's crazy.
You know, in WWE, they can have our leftovers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, none. I don't know any other independent company that's got Rogers Arena on their list. You know,
I'm pretty stoked about that. So definitely sign up to the socials, follow the socials, because we're going to be doing the little talent drops of who's going to be performing on that show, and there's going to be some pretty wild. You know, so people are going to be very excited at some of the talent.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I know you got a lot going on. This was fun, and I'll definitely have you back on just the regular weekly show, the TWC show. If you want to promote something, just hop on for like 10-15 minutes, do your thing.
Yeah, brother, no, absolutely. You know,
this is like the interview show, but the regular weekly show, we're just always just shooting the shit about whatever. So it'll be fun to come on there and just talk. But I want to put a spotlight on WrestleCore and the wrestling here in Vancouver, and I love that. Even talking to you, I love realizing now it's like I'm even more intrigued to come to every show, because now I feel like they're all different. It's not like, oh, I went to this wrestling show, I don't need to go to that one. Like every single one of you guys are like presenting something different. Like this is the best.
It's really you can't miss a single one right now. You know?
Yeah, no, for sure. I really like. Yeah, so it's insane. Thank you so much. Keep doing the thing, everybody. Make sure you check out WrestleCore. If you're just vacationing in Vancouver, you're coming through, or you're in Seattle and you want to come up, you're on the island and you want to come through. There's a lot of wrestling in Vancouver right now. Pacific Northwest is doing its thing to bring wrestling back to the city and doing it in clearly different ways. And we'll see you all later. Ooh, yeah. Dig it.
All right, thanks, brother.
It's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.